It's time for today's travel and cruise industry news. With the latest from travel and cruises around the world, here's your host, Chillie Falls.
Good morning and welcome to Travel and Cruise Industry News on this, the 29th day of December 2021. Today is Mongolian Independence Day, celebrating the liberation of Mongolia from the King China era. All right, we have some cruise ships sailing today from North American ports. Down in West Palm Beach, the Grand Classica will sail, and as those of you know, the Grand Classica will soon become the Margaritaville Paradise. Down in Fort Lauderdale, the Eurodam, Regal Princess, and Emerald Princess all sail. Miami, Scarlet, Lady, Crystal Symphony, and Disney Magic. Over in Tampa, Brilliance of the Seas gets underway. In Galveston, Adventure of the Seas, I'll be on her in March. Out in Los Angeles, Long Beach, the Carnival Miracle sails, and in San Pedro, Los Angeles, the Majestic Princess sails. That's the sailings today from North America ports. Headlines today, which we're going to get to here in just a moment. Booster shots in the cruise industry. The Bolt roller coaster wins an award. Will new CDC guidance affect cruises? Cruise lines begin canceling visits to San Juan. That's a follow-up on yesterday's story. And Port Canaveral is the top port. All that and more today on Travel and Cruise Industry News. And by the way, just to repeat what I said yesterday, those of you that are interested in accessing the podcast, and the podcast now is starting to get propagated through a number of the usual places like Spotify and Google and Apple ID and all where you get your regular podcast. Just check and see if they have Travel and Cruise Industry News. They probably do. You can also go to my blog, my accessible blog, which is accessadventure.net. And the podcast, there's a tab on the headings, and you can click on that, and it'll take you to not only to the regular podcast page, but it will also give you links to the regular podcast performance pages if you want to go and get that through Spotify or Google or Amazon or one of those. So, and those links will always be down in the description underneath, which you can link on that. All right, I had a little feedback and pushback from yesterday's mention of Cunard and P&O's recent requirement of the vaccine booster shot. We announced that yesterday. The day before, it had changed where that became a requirement. Most of the mainstream cruise lines, including Carnival, Princess, and others, are not requiring booster shots at this time, but are strongly recommending them to their guests. In some cases, they're making sure that crew members on board receive the boosters as soon as possible. Those recommendations are found via the cruise line protocols and on their website. The CDC has strongly recommended that all persons over 16 obtain a COVID-19 booster vaccination when eligible. They strongly encourage all guests who are eligible to get the booster vaccine at least 7 days before boarding any cruise ship. Over the past 10 days or so, we've seen numerous ports turning away ships with cases on board. Don't be surprised if booster shots become part of the port requirements. As of yesterday, for instance, Hawaii is still discussing a protocol agreement to allow ships to disembark. Part of the discussion is the requirement of booster shots. The indication is that they're going to pass that, and that somebody like Amy that we talked about yesterday, Amy's Hawaii cruise, hopefully will go if they get this protocol passed. Without the agreement in Hawaii, the cruise ships cannot dock. That's just the way it is. Now, this could easily be adopted by numerous ports that are trying to keep their citizens as safe as possible and still enjoy the economic benefits of the cruise industry. So, Hawaii, we know, is trying to get that passed so they can get the agreement so the ships can start landing and sailing in Hawaii again. Hopefully there'll be news on that imminently, today, maybe tomorrow, we hope. Now, there's no doubt about it. I have long been a proponent of vaccines. I've said this on this space many, many times. I highly recommend the booster as soon as you are eligible. Also, I got mine the day I was eligible. So I highly recommend it. And it's totally transparent. I've had mine. I had no side effects. It's good to go. And I highly recommend each and every one of you, if you have not already, to do so. So, all right, we'll be back with today's news after this. Carnival Cruise Line's Bolt roller coaster that can be found aboard the Mardi Gras has been voted the best cruise ship feature of 2021. Undoubtedly, the innovative new feature has been much talked about throughout the year, especially as Bolt is the first roller coaster at sea on Carnival's new XL class ships. Carnival Skyrise was second. That's on some of the smaller ships. Norwegian Go-Karts finished third. Bolt has a 224-yard track located toward the ship's aft, 165 yards above sea level. Bolt can reach up to speeds up to 40 miles an hour and offers thrilling twists and turns around the iconic Carnival funnel. The next LNG-powered cruise ship from Carnival, the Carnival Celebration, will debut during 2022 and will have a similar roller coaster. In addition, the Carnival Mardi Gras also won Best New Cruise Ship in 2021. The next official question for the day is, will the new CDC guidance that the media has been talking about, it's at least taken away some of the talk about the cruise ships that they're not giving the full story on. But will the new guidance that came out yesterday affect the cruise industry? And if so, how? According to the latest guidance, the CDC recommends individuals who test positive for COVID but remain asymptomatic, displaying no symptoms of the illness, need only self-isolate for 5 days instead of 10 days after they receive their test result. If after 5 days of isolation, the person stays asymptomatic, they should continue to wear masks around others for another 5 days as an extra precaution. Melissa Mainz over at Cruise Hive says, while these new guidelines are not likely to affect cruise ships' itinerary changes or the reaction of different ports of call if cases are reported on board, it can make reactions on the ship much more enjoyable for passengers. For example, if a cruise ship is reported, if a positive case is reported on a cruise ship, contact tracing can identify other passengers that have come in contact with the confirmed COVID case. Those passengers, if they are fully vaccinated and have received a booster, may be able to continue to enjoy cruise ship activities if they wear a suitable mask rather than going into isolation in their staterooms. This could get a little controversial, folks, but this is a follow-up to what CDC is saying now. Furthermore, asymptomatic individuals who have tested positive will only need to remain quarantined for 5 days rather than 10, which means they will be able to return to onboard activities on longer sailings rather than remain in isolation for the entirety of the cruise. Because cruise ships have proven to react quickly to positive cases, this can mean even better control of the virus transmission and more normalcy on board. The mainstream media wants us to think that that everything's going to hell in the cruise industry. That's the way they've reported it. One of the reports overnight, one of the reporters was talking about all of a sudden the CDC is showing cases on 86 cruise ships. The CDC has been rating this for months now. This is not new. This has been going on since we started back with the restart, and the CDC has their chart of every ship sailing. This is not something that happened overnight, like the mainstream media is saying. And the protocols are working. Admittedly, this variant is more transmissible, but it's not more serious, other than in the mass of numbers. All right, we talked about this yesterday. The implementation of new testing requirements for debarking cruise ship passengers is having a significant effect on the tourism industry in Puerto Rico already. According to a local news outlet in San Juan, at least 11 calls from cruise lines sailing under Royal Caribbean and Azamara cruises have been canceled. Those calls account for a revenue stream of at least $5.5 million, which has gone up in smoke for local residents. However, this number could climb to as much as $12 million or more as more cruise lines look at these options. This week, there were visits scheduled for Celebrity Edge, Odyssey of the Seas, Celebrity Reflection, Celebrity Millennium, Regent Seven Seas Splendor, and the Carnival Magic. Whether these ship visits will happen depends on whether the cruise lines can provide enough testing for guests on board. In January 2022, there's 49 visits to San Juan that are scheduled from major cruise lines. We've seen Holland America, Carnival Cruise Line, and Royal Caribbean ships impacted by the sudden implementation of testing requirements in Mexico, the Cayman Islands, and of course here in Puerto Rico, just in the past few days. As reports are coming in that Omicron has less severe symptoms, the cruise ports are increasing their health and safety barriers, which leave the cruise ships with no place to go. And they're not equipped to handle testing everybody, on a daily basis so they can get into cruise ports. At least was clearly not ready while they're on these cruises. Maybe that can be stocked up at some point in time to do this. But in the meantime, what are the cruise ships supposed to do? There's not an answer to that one yet. And the last story for the day, folks, Port Canaveral has been voted the best cruise port, the best cruise home port in the United States for 2021. It's not really a major guess as to who were second and third. Port Miami, of course, was second, and Port Everglades, that's Fort Lauderdale to the uninformed, was third. So that's the news for today, folks. Let's go see who's over in the chat room. Jack's with us from Conroe, Texas. 74 and cloudy down there in Conroe. Elizabeth Wisses, buenos dias to the gang from sunny, beautiful Cozumel. 84-degree day down in Cozumel. That's nice. Kenneth's with us up in Pennsylvania. I promise you it's not 84 degrees in Pennsylvania. It's going to be 60 in Virginia here today, which is nice. We had 70 for a couple of days. It's going to be 60 now for a couple of days. And it's going to get cold again by this weekend. But, what can I say? Carol's with us. A balmy 36 degrees up in Niagara Falls. Wow. That's cooler than it is here. Cindy's with us. Says, good morning, gang. Cindy's down in the Tampa area. Hot air Tom, by the way. And I tell you what, folks, hot air Tom got me yesterday. Pulled one right over on me. Yesterday, I suggested it was the Call a Friend Day. And I suggested for you guys to get on the phone and call somebody you hadn't talked to for a while. Well, there I am sitting in my chair, all leaned back and comfortable, and the phone rings, and I didn't know who it was when I answered the phone, quite frankly, at first. Hot Air Tom and Cindy were on their way back from Pennsylvania they live over in Richmond, Virginia. They were driving on their way back and listened to the I know they weren't listening to the podcast, but they were listening to the broadcast in the car, and saw that I suggested calling somebody, call a friend. So Hot Air did. They stopped at a diner, and it happened to be a diner that I know, that I've been to before several times when I was running back and forth between Pennsylvania and Virginia. But anyway, Hot Air Tom called me. So I appreciate that. Of course, they're back home now for a few days at least. Anyway, so I appreciate Hot Air Tom calling me. So Gretchen says it's 40 degrees in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. Katie's with us. Hi, Katie. Katie back home from her cruise on Mariner of the Seas. Hot Air says, I don't understand the benefit of a podcast. YouTube is fine for listening to the show. Well, it's the difference, Hot Air, is it's another platform that hopefully will attract people to this channel. Eventually, yes, it's nice to get them to YouTube. But there are a lot of people that do not go with YouTube, that go strictly with podcast venues, like Spotify, for instance. Spotify I checked it this morning. It has a nice page for, travel and cruise industry news. It lists all the past broadcasts right there. You can click on any of them, which, of course, I'll be sure there's just 2 that are now on the podcast. There'll be a 3rd one here shortly after the show's over with. It's another venue for getting the word out, preaching the gospel of Chillie cruises and travel and cruise industry news. So the difference is that it is strictly words, audible. There, obviously there's not pictures and news clips and so forth. So one has to talk around it. As you guys all know, most of my interviews in the past have been very visually oriented. So my new interviews are going to become much more word oriented as opposed to visual orientation. Doesn't mean that I won't be using pictures for you guys that are on YouTube and Facebook, where you can see what I'm doing as well. And we'll see how that works out overall in the long run. So, but right away, in 2 days' time, I've got 35 new folks listening to this broadcast. So I have not been doing that in a 2-day period on YouTube or Facebook of new folks. So, it's getting more audience. So, let's see if there's any other comments down here. Elizabeth says, I'm in the process of getting back on a ship and have been told that all of the crew will be given the booster upon joining a ship. Awesome. Elizabeth says, I still don't have an official assignment, but that is what my office just told her. Okay. And when you have an official assignment, Elizabeth, make sure you let us know. Let me know. And as most of you probably would assume, I know and can't say where it's likely that our Elizabeth on location is going to end up. But it's not official, and I can't say it either. So, but we're hoping and praying for Elizabeth to get an official assignment. And I hope I miss her when I go to Cozumel here in 3 weeks, or a little over 3 weeks, I guess it is. The first one to Cozumel. So, Kenneth says they got to hurry up because the first Hawaiian cruise is next Tuesday. I think Princess starts it. Yeah. They're pushing for it. There have been a couple cruises going to Hawaii that have been canceled, and yeah, we're getting close to where several are scheduled and still on the schedule, as Amy's is, for instance. Of course, Katie says for Elizabeth to keep us posted. Amy says, I still have my fingers crossed. I'm more worried about my flights being canceled. Yeah, I mean, we're back into this unknown area, folks, on what's going to happen. And, good, bad, or indifferent, we're just going to have to go with the flow. And like we've been saying all along, since we got some new folks out there, this is the time, folks, when you've got to be able to stand and take changes, because there are going to be things changing virtually on a daily basis, whether it's port changes or cruise changes or airline changes or protocol changes. It's going to happen. These guys are doing their very best at keeping our world safe, our cruise world safe, our travel world safe, our safeness to get on an airplane. I do believe they're all trying to do the best they can under some very difficult circumstances. And we as consumers of that product need to be able to go with the flow or just stay away. Don't fight it. Don't fight the protocols. Don't fight the rule changes. Don't fight the ports that are going to pull a rug out from a visit. If you want to cruise or travel, just keep that in mind. So, Hot Air Tom flies out on January 23rd for the freebie on Celebrity Silhouette. And I fly out on January 24th to go get on Freedom of the Seas and down in Miami. Jason says fake news. Which one's fake news, Jason? I wouldn't be upset missing Puerto Rico. Oh, yeah. Well, there's parts of Puerto Rico that I really like. Not necessarily. I mean, I've been to San Juan several times. San Juan's not my favorite spot in the world, but there are parts of Puerto Rico that are wonderful, especially, you get away from some of the cruise ports and it's lovely. Really is. So, Elizabeth says, I love old San Juan. Emily's with us up in New York. Hi, Emily. Elizabeth says, you need to take my tour of Old Town in San Juan. I would love to. Well, let's meet in San Juan, Elizabeth. I'll be happy to. You get on a ship and get a day off in San Juan, and I'm on the same ship, and we'll go to your tour in Old San Juan. So, Gretchen likes Puerto Rico as well. Jason says, not that I don't like Puerto Rico. I've been there many times. Yeah, that's probably my problem as well. Although, I've been to Cozumel. I've been to Nassau a bazillion times. There's still elements of Nassau that I like. And I've talked many times before. The last probably 4 or 5 times I've been to Nassau, I didn't do anything but get off the boat and go into the straw market and find my little gal that makes this yummy pina coladas in the straw market. Has this little stand in there, and sit there for an hour and a half, or 2 hours sipping on pina coladas and talking with her and all her buddies there in the straw market. That became one of my favorite ports and favorite things to do. And I was never more than 100 yards from the ship. But that's just me. I like simple things in life too. And a lot of you guys do a lot more excursions. Like Hot Air Tom, he's done more excursions than I'll do in a lifetime. He does stuff that, I wouldn't mind doing it, but I tend to do much more simple visits in my ports. Yeah. And that was I was that way before, the mobility issues crept into my life. But, I can be happy going and having an adult beverage someplace, or just going and having a little lunch. That's why some of the ports like, I can't even think of the name of it now. My mind went blank. But anyway, some of the ports, I just totally enjoy where I can get off, ride my scooter in, have a little bite of lunch, an adult beverage or two. Falmouth, Jamaica, there's a good example. There's a Margaritaville in Falmouth. Totally enjoyed it. That's the kind of thing that I'm perfectly happy to do. So, all right, got to keep going here, folks. Emily says her neighbor called last night to see if she needed help with any of the garbage or boxes to be put out for this AM. Emily says, Tom, that was very sweet of you. Yes, it was. Jason says, click on all of them. Chillie has an Instagram account too. Yep, I don't really use the Instagram, Emily. I really don't. Rest in peace, Chillie Chats. Not really. Which does bring up one issue that I will point out. I'm not doing a live show on the 1st, but I am going to do a replay of the gentleman that I interviewed last week, week before last, who was blind. I'm going to replay that mainly because I want that to go into the podcast network, because that was a really good interview. But yes, Chillie Chats will still be around. As a matter of fact, Jason, there's going to be more Chillie Chats because of the podcast. I'm going to be doing a lot more, as a matter of fact, and mixing it in with news. So that's my plan, at least for now. Kenneth says San Juan is very pretty. I love the brick roads and going to the castles. Cindy says, "Good news, Chillie, on the new listeners." Yeah, I'm tickled. When I started seeing the numbers showing up now that it's getting propagated and going out to different places or available different places. I still haven't gotten into the swing of promoting it yet. So Elizabeth says we would do the How I Ate and Drank My Way Around San Juan tour. Absolutely. That we could do that. Eating our way and drinking our way all around. We could do that in a lot of ports, come to think about it. Cindy says she loves the straw market. Curious, how many cruises have you been on total between all the cruise lines? Me, 48. This will be 49 coming up. And Kenneth, most of mine have been Carnival. About 80% have been Carnival. This next year, I'm doing more with Royal Caribbean than anything. And MSC, I'll be on all 3 of the MSC ships that are on this side of the pond. I've been on a number of Norwegians, but I'm still primarily, mine have been Carnival. I was on Carnival for years and years and years and didn't go do anything but Carnival. Gretchen says she ate and drank her way around San Juan. I might have had a hard time remembering what a good time I had. Oh, if she ate and drank her way around San Juan. Yeah, well, that could be too. Emily is laughing in Spanish when writing like laugh out loud or yeah. Yeah, that's Elizabeth's laugh. It's in Spanish. So Emily's right on that one. Cindy says, sign me up for that tour in San Juan. You got it. We do that. Wouldn't that be a stitch? Get this whole gang and go hitting all the bars and restaurants around old San Juan. That would be fun. That would be fabulous. All right, guys, that's going to wrap me up for today. Again, if you're new to this channel, we always appreciate the thumbs up. And those likes do help the channel out especially as far as YouTube is concerned. And if if you have not subscribed, please consider doing so. You can also subscribe on the podcast channel, folks, for those of you that are podcast guys and ladies. You can subscribe to any of the podcast channels and they let you know when the new podcast goes up, and you can keep up with me that way. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today. You guys have a fabulous day and night, and stay healthy and think about cruising. And one of these days, we'll all meet on the high seas. This is the old fat travel guy. You guys have a terrific day. I'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Travel and Cruise Industry News. Later, y'all.
I regularly post videos on all facets of the travel and cruise industry. So if you like to keep up with the latest in cruise ships, ports of call, cruises themselves, Chillie chats, and travel and cruise industry news, just hit the little subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. Hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when a new video is up or we go live. This video was produced by Chillie's Cruises.